Jake was on his way to meet Emily, his latest Tinder match. Charming online, he was far less committed in person. Jake thrived on the thrill of new connections, but at any sign of depth, he'd quickly pull back. As he prepared to meet the intelligent and sincere Emily, he was already planning his graceful exit. For him, dating was just a game of evasion, never about real commitment. Jake hurried down the subway station stairs. Suddenly, a curled-up panhandler blocked his path with his stump of an arm. Jake frowned in disgust and quickly sidestepped him. At a glance, he noticed the panhandler wasn't just missing both hands, but also had blank eyes, seemingly completely blind. Those hollow eyes seemed to peer into the darkest secrets of his heart, making Jake even more uncomfortable. He avoided the panhandler's gaze and hurried on. Just as he was about to walk away from the panhandler, he felt a gentle tug on his coat. Jake turned around, irritated, ready to give a piece of his mind, but then he heard the panhandler whispering softly,
"Eyes but no sight. Eyes but no sight."
It seemed like a description of his own blindness as well as a commentary on being overlooked. Jake felt a chill and quickened his pace. However, he suddenly felt something grasp his coat's hem again. Turning, he saw the panhandler's outstretched arm reaching towards him, yet it didn't touch his clothes. But Jake's gaze fell to the ground, and to his horror, he saw two hands firmly gripping the bottom of his coat from within the shadow, as if they belonged to the panhandler himself. It seemed the panhandler possessed some kind of invisible power. The panhandler's voice echoed once more.
"Eyes but no sight. Eyes but no sight."
Jake felt a chill creep up his spine, struggling desperately, but the invisible shadow hands held him tightly, making it impossible for him to break free. As fear swiftly swelled, those shadow hands began to climb up his collar. Jake wanted to shake off these unseen hands.
"Let me go! Let me out of this!"
Just then, the tugging sensation on Jack suddenly vanished. Jake, angry and embarrassed, fled the scene. The panhandler looked at Jack with an unsettling tone, saying,
"You owe me."
Before they knew it, Jake and Emily were meeting up at the subway station. Jake had the perfect day planned out for them, brimming with surprises. They quickly found themselves a quiet spot to sit, away from the hustle of the busy station. Leaning in close, Jake began whispering his plans to Emily, who listened intently, her face lighting up with a smile before she responded softly. Unnoticed at first, a disheveled panhandler appeared not too far away. He started begging from the passengers inside the car. As the panhandler inched closer to Jake, who was caught up in a lively chat with Emily, she noticed him first, her face morphing into a look of compassion. Jake turned to follow her gaze and immediately recognized the panhandler from before. This unexpected encounter sent a shiver of dread through Jake. Jake had no desire to embarrass himself in front of Emily or any of the other passengers in the car again. Driven by this thought, he quickly pulled out all the cash from his wallet and handed it over to the panhandler without a second thought. The panhandler's lips curled into an elusive smile as he murmured,
"Keeping it does you no good. Might as well hand it over to me."
Thinking the panhandler was finally satisfied, Jake felt an indescribable sense of relief and went back to sit next to Emily. But he was wrong. Jake's brown eyes began to fade, gradually swallowed by a white fog that obscured his vision. Meanwhile, in the empty sockets of the panhandler, a pair of mismatched brown eyes appeared, scrutinizing Jake, who stood there, lost in the haze. The panhandler spoke slowly.
"This time, you owe me nothing."
Emily was glued to the unfolding scene before her, when a pair of pupils suddenly appeared in the panhandler's eyes. She could scarcely believe her own eyes. It was Jake's gaze staring back at her. She realized, unbelievably, that this panhandler had somehow stolen Jake's sight. Just then, an announcement for the upcoming stop echoed through the train car, snapping Emily out of her reverie. Watching the panhandler about to vanish into the crowd, she suddenly stood up, channeling all her strength to shout at the departing panhandler.
"Stop! Give my friend his eyes back!"
The panhandler paused in his tracks, slowly turning his head around. His eyes had once again shifted back to a chaotic white. In a raspy voice, the panhandler asked,
"Do you really want his eyes back?"
Give him back his eyes!
The panhandler's expression darkened.
Tell me,
He challenged.
can you tell which eyes are his?
The lights in the car began to flicker. Suddenly, countless eyes appeared on the panhandler's face, each pupil varying in size, filled with despair and begging. As the lights in the car flickered back to life, everything returned to normal. Emily stood there speechless, fully aware that he had just witnessed a power not of this world. The panhandler then made a chilling offer out of the blue.
You know, I could swap all the eyes on my face for yours. Your eyes are so beautiful, they're priceless to me.
Emily was taken aback by this sudden proposition, finding herself at a loss for words. Seeing her reaction, the panhandler chuckled self-deprecatingly.
But who would make such a sacrifice?
Wait up, I'm willing to make a trade. It's not just for him, but for everyone who's been affected.
All right, eyes offered in sacrifice are far more precious than those taken by force. I'll return them right now.
That was Emily's last clear glimpse of the world before her view was swallowed by a thick white fog. Emily heard Jake's voice, bursting with excitement.
I can really see now.
Jake walked up to Emily, his voice unmistakably tinged with confusion and anxiety.
Where did that panhandler go? How come that jerk's disappeared?
It was clear that the panhandler had slipped away unnoticed, leaving no trace behind.
Your eyes, why have they gone white?
To restore your sight, I gave my eyes to that panhandler. You can see now, can't you?
What? You really gave your eyes to that panhandler?
However, Jake's reaction was totally unexpected for Emily. Suddenly, Jake's voice turned cold.
I'm sorry, this is just too insane for me to handle. I think you need to call the cops. And I can't be with someone who's blind. I have to go. Take care of yourself.
Just as he was about to step out of the train car, he caught sight of a panhandler on the platform staring at him with Emily's eyes. Instinctively, Jake took a step back, just as the doors slowly closed in front of him. The train started moving, and the panhandler, along with the platform, vanished without a trace. He let out a long sigh of relief and turned to look at Emily. The poor girl was fumbling around, seeking help. Jake pressed himself against the door, fearing Emily's touch. She staggered past him, disappearing into the far end of the car. Finally, Jake breathed a sigh of relief, straightened his clothes, and prepared to get off at the next stop.
Stand clear of the closing doors, please.
Suddenly, someone tapped on his shoulder. Jake, annoyed, furrowed his brow and turned around, only to meet Emily's eyes glaring at him with fierce intensity. It was that panhandler. Jake felt a chill go down his spine, his limbs turning ice cold. He began to frantically pound on the car door, desperate to escape this eerie reality. But no matter how hard he tried, the door wouldn't budge. From behind, the panhandler's voice echoed,
Eyes but no sight. Eyes but no sight.
Jake felt an invisible force gripping his eyes tightly, his vision blurring until he was swallowed by darkness. Meanwhile, at the other end of the car, Emily's eyes suddenly returned to normal. Years later, Emily ran into Jake again at a subway entrance. His clothes were tattered, his face gaunt, a far cry from his former charm. All that remained in his eyes were two deep, dark voids, striking fear into anyone who caught a glimpse. He shook his head incessantly, muttering to himself over and over.
Eyes, but no sight. Eyes, but no sight.
Don't you wish that I could give